Good morning. Welcome to my channel, Cafe Life. My name is Tuan Duong, and today we will be talking about espresso do-it-yourself accessories that you can create and make with leftover materials within your house. Basically, an episode of do-it-yourselfer. So you can recycle and reuse material rather than throwing it to the waste yard. So before we begin, let's give a recap of the espresso workflow for the beginner or anybody who's looking to get into the home barista setup. So before we begin, to make coffee espresso, you need to grind. In order to grind, you need a grinder. And then once you grind, what I do find useful is these funnels. This, I can't make it myself, so I had to buy one. And then you would need to level it, do the distribution with this distribution device, and then you use the tamper to push it down, right? You can put it at the edge of your kitchen countertop, or you can make yourself a tamping station holder like this, so then you can easily tamp it down. And then you would need to put like a mesh screen so that you keep the group head clean. So that's about it for the workflow. So the first do-it-yourselfer or DIY is I recycle one of these coffee cans. They're just great, right? So what I did, this is the first easy do-it-yourselfer that I did. I put stickers on them all around, just to make it more anonymous, because I'm not sponsored by any company at this point. And after that, I had to solve for the challenge of having a tamping station holder, because this is a 49.5 millimeter portafilter, and it's hard to find a tamping station that fits. So this is what I created. So basically, this is made out of, this is what we call in Canada a 2x4. It's actually not a 2x4 if you actually measure it, but they call it a 2x4. So this is basically pine wood used for construction, home construction. So basically what I did is, as you can see, this is the same length. I just measure two pieces, same length, cut, and I pile one on top of the other, and I use glue, construction glue, to glue, and I clamp it together. And this hole is pretty simple. You just take a drill around, and then you take a jigsaw, just cut it around. And this triangle piece is basically from one of those fruit basket from the supermarket. And I just used construction glue, glued it, clamp it, and then I sanded it down, and I had some leftover stickers. I didn't know what to do, so I started decorating it, right? It works so far. So this is the second do-it-yourselfer gadget that I made, the tamping station. And the last one that I want to share with you is this puck screen, mesh screen. What I did is a leftover tuna can, still in good condition, clean it out, wash it out. And here we have a old computer heatsink. It's made out of aluminum, so it won't rust, right? And one of the reasons why I didn't want to glue it down here right in the middle is because I want it to be able to like take it out and rinse and brush off the coffee grounds. So I just leave it in the middle. Put 1, 2, 3, 4. So this setup works. It fits the standard portafilter, the 58 millimeter portafilter screens, and it also fits the 49.5. And as you can see, you can roll it around. It won't roll out anymore. So I've shared with you my espresso do-it-yourselfer creativity, and I'd be curious, what have you done? What type of art or creation that you did to integrate with your home coffee setup? Having said that, if you like this video, please subscribe and leave comments, and I'll get back to you. And thank you for watching.